The Stillness of Discomfort, Teachings of Master Nutzen. Ah, my soft-pawed disciples, you leap through the forest, swift and light. You gather, you chatter, you scurry, but what happens when you feel discomfort? What happens when the cold wind bites your fur? When your belly rumbles and the acorns are buried deep beneath the frozen earth? When you sit in stillness and an itch creeps into your paw, your tail twitches, your mind races? Do you flee? Do you scurry to the next branch, searching for distraction? Ah, but what if you stayed? What if you did not run from the discomfort, but listened to it? Today, my disciples, I teach you the way of sitting with discomfort, not fleeing, not numbing, not distracting, simply being with what is, the acorn that will not crack. Ah, have you ever found an acorn, my disciples, that refuses to crack open? You chew, you gnaw, your paws press against it, but it does not yield, and so you grow frustrated. Why will it not open? You ask, why is this so difficult? And so some squirrels toss it away. Some look for a softer acorn, an easier meal, but the wise squirrel waits. The wise squirrel does not reject the acorn simply because it is hard. He sits with it, he turns it in his paws, he studies it, and in time he learns, this acorn must be placed in the right spot, under the right pressure, with patience. And then, when the time is right, crack. So too, my disciples, is your discomfort. Do not toss it away. Do not run to another tree, another branch, another distraction. Sit with it, feel it, and when the time is right, it will open, and inside, the nourishment you have been seeking, the wind that cannot be outrun. Ah, my disciples, you have felt the cold wind, yes? A storm comes, the sky darkens, the wind rushes through the trees, shaking the branches, bending them low. And what do we squirrels do? We run, we seek shelter, we tuck ourselves into our nests, waiting for the storm to pass. But what if the wind does not pass? What if it is the season of storms? Some squirrels chase the sun, leaping from tree to tree, searching for a place where the wind does not blow. But the wise squirrel, the wise squirrel learns to sit in the wind. The wise squirrel feels the cold, the push, the force. He does not resist it. He does not fear it. He lets it pass through him. And in doing so, he realizes the wind does not last forever. The discomfort is only here, now. And if you breathe with it, if you sit in it, it will move on. Not because you ran from it, but because you allowed it to be. The itch that does not need to be scratched. My disciples, have you ever tried to meditate only to feel an itch? A twitch in your paw, a tickle in your ear, a rustle in your tail, and suddenly your focus is gone. You cannot think of the trees, the sky, the breath, only the itch. And so you scratch, you shift, you break the stillness. But what if you did not scratch? What if you simply noticed? There is an itch, you say to yourself. It is here, and you watch it. You do not fight it. You do not react. And then, like a leaf drifting to the ground, it is gone. Many of you, my disciples, do not sit with your discomfort long enough to see it fade on its own. You leap, you chatter, you scratch, you scurry. But the wise squirrel knows most discomfort does not need to be solved. It only needs to be observed. Sit with your discomfort, my disciples. Breathe with it and watch as it passes, just like everything else in the great forest. And the next time discomfort comes, do not run. Sit, breathe, listen. For even discomfort has something to teach. The bird who does not rush the sky. My disciples, have you ever watched a bird? Not just seen it, but truly watched? You see the wings, the flight, the great soaring across the sky, and you think, ah, how free, how effortless. But do you see the moments before the flight? Do you see the bird sitting on the branch, feathers ruffled, waiting? Do you see the bird holding still in the wind, adjusting, choosing the right moment? A young squirrel, impatient, sees the bird and thinks, why wait? Just jump, just go. But the wise squirrel, the wise squirrel knows the bird does not rush the sky. It does not force the wind to carry it. It does not panic when the wind shifts. It feels, it waits. It learns the air, the movement, the rhythm, and then, when the moment is right, it leaps. And so, my disciples, when you feel restless, when you feel discomfort in waiting, remember, the bird does not rush the sky. It waits, and then, when it is ready, it flies. You too will fly, my disciples, but only when it is time. The ant who carries too much. My disciples, watch the ant, small, quiet, tireless. It carries the seed, the leaf, the crumb, much larger than itself. It climbs over rocks, roots, branches, never stopping. And when a barrier appears, does the ant complain? Does it sigh, drop its burden and say, this is too much? No, the ant stops. It observes, it adjusts, and then it finds another way. But, my disciples, have you also seen an ant carry too much? Have you seen the moment when it struggles, when its little legs shake, when it tries, but the burden is simply too heavy? And then, it does something wise. It lets go. Some of you, my disciples, carry too much. You think, I must push through. I must endure. I must be strong. But strength is not in holding on to what is too heavy. Strength is knowing when to set it down. Sit with the discomfort, my disciples, feel the weight, and then ask, do I need to carry this? If the answer is no, let it go. The ant does not judge itself for setting something down, and neither should you, the river that does not resist the rocks. And now, my disciples, we return to water. Some of you fear discomfort because it is unexpected. You leap, and the branch is not where you thought it would be. You store an acorn, and the ground is harder than you remember. You follow a path, and suddenly a great stone blocks your way. And in that moment, you feel anger, frustration, fear. But look at the river, my disciples. Does it fight the rock? Does it stop and complain? No. It simply moves around it. It flows, always forward, never resisting what is in its way. But some of you try to push the rock away. You try to make the forest bend to your will rather than flowing with it. And so your discomfort grows. The wise squirrel knows the forest does not change for you. The river does not move the rock. But you can move yourself. You can breathe. You can pause. You can flow with what is, rather than fighting against it. And in doing so, my disciples, you will always find your way forward. So, my disciples, now you know, the bird does not rush the sky. The ant knows when to set something down. The river does not resist the rock. When discomfort comes, and it will come, do not run. Do not fight. Sit, breathe, watch, and like the bird, the ant, and the river, you will find your way, the tree that grows through stone. My disciples, look at the great trees around you, tall, strong, unshaken by wind. But do you think they always had it easy? No. Some sprouted in rich soil where the roots could grow deep with ease, but others grew where the ground was hard, where stone and rock blocked their way. And yet, did they stop? Did they say, this is too difficult, I will not grow here? No, they pressed forward. Their roots moved around the rock, finding the cracks, the open spaces, the hidden paths. Slowly, patiently, they grew through the stone. And now, those are the strongest trees in the forest. My disciples, when your path is hard, when the ground beneath you does not give easily, do not stop growing. Find another way. For the most unshakable squirrel is not the one who had an easy climb, but the one who learned to grow even through the stone. The trees that sleep and return. My disciples, some of you feel that if you are not always moving, you are failing. If you are not always leaping, you are falling behind. But look at the trees, my disciples. They do not grow endlessly. When the cold comes, when the days shorten, they let go. Their leaves drift to the ground. Their branches become bare. And you might think, they are dying. But no, they are simply resting. And when the time is right, when the warmth returns, when the light lengthens once more, they awaken, they bud, they bloom. And so, my disciples, you must learn the lesson of the trees. Do not fear your own winter. There will be times when you have no energy to leap, to store, to chatter, to build. That is not failure. That is the season of rest. Let yourself be still. Let yourself pause and trust. Spring always returns, and when it does, you will grow again. The bees that never stop searching. And now, my disciples, consider the bees. They hum, they buzz, they travel far, always searching for sweetness. But do they always find it easily? No. Some days, the flowers are abundant, and the nectar flows freely. Other days the flowers are hidden, scarce, wilted by drought or rain. And yet, do the bees give up? Do they say, "There is nothing here, I will stop searching"? No, they keep going. They travel farther, they look in new places, and eventually they find what they need. My disciples, some of you stop too soon. You say, "This branch has no acorns. There must be none in the whole forest." But the wise squirrel knows. Just because you do not see it yet does not mean it is not there. So, when the flowers seem gone, when the acorns seem hidden, when life seems to hold nothing for you, be like the bee. Keep searching, for sweetness is always somewhere, and those who keep looking will always find it. And so, my disciples, today you have learned. The tree grows even when the ground is hard. The tree rests, knowing that spring will come. The bee keeps searching, trusting that sweetness will appear. Now, take these lessons into your own journey. When life is hard, grow through the stone. When you are weary, rest and let spring return. When you feel lost, keep searching, for what you seek is there. And remember, my disciples, the forest is always changing, and so are you.